I used to think college riding meant one thing. Those big varsity NCEA teams that you hear about, like Baylor, University of Georgia, even here in Virginia, Sweetbriar, and University of Lynchburg. Like your kid is either going to get recruited or they are done riding when they graduate high school. But about a year ago, Chloe came to me and said something that really stopped me in my tracks. She said, maybe I won't go to college because everyone I know who rides quits when they go away to school. And I remember thinking, one, this is not okay. And two, this cannot be the only option. And if she's thinking that, then I know other kids are too. So today, we're talking with Beth Sheely, head coach of the Virginia Tech equestrian team, to understand what options actually exist and why college riding might look very different than we think. Welcome to Broke Horse Moms, the podcast that helps non-horsey horse moms navigate the confusing, expensive, and all-consuming world of equestrian life. I'm your host, Angie Trueblood, and like you, I did not grow up in the horse world. But once my daughter fell in love with riding, I found myself Googling, what is a lead change? Why are riding pants called breeches? And how much does it cost to lease a horse? This show is here to make the horse world more understandable, more accessible, and a lot less lonely for the moms figuring it out as we go. Well, hello, friend. Today, I am really excited because we're tackling a topic that I think will be eye-opening for a lot of us, college riding opportunities that don't involve NCEA or NCAA teams. So when we first started talking about college riding in our family, I kept seeing all of these club teams. And honestly, I kind of brushed them off. I assumed it was basically like riding at a private barn, fairly expensive, but just on campus. But then Jason, my husband, ran into the dad of a rider at Virginia Tech who ended up connecting us with Beth Sheely. And I realized that there is so much more to this world than I knew existed. So Beth is the head coach of the Virginia Tech equestrian team. Go Hokies! She earned her master's degree at Virginia Tech and actually started her coaching career there before going on to coach at University of Mary Washington and then work with the riders at Bridgewater College, helping develop some nationally competitive teams and even individual champions. She returned to Tech back in 2016, bringing all of that experience to their program. And today, my friend, she is here to help us understand what these club programs really look like and why they might be a perfect option for so many riders. Now, before we dig in, quick note. During this episode, you'll hear me say NCAA riding, and then Beth talks about NCEA riding. So I did a little homework on the difference and similarities between the two so that we can pretend that we know what we're talking about if we're ever in a circle of college riding folks. So the NCAA stands for the National Collegiate Athletic Association, and it's the big governing body for college sports in the U.S. They set the rules, oversee competition, and manage eligibility. And this is probably the organization that you too are most familiar with because we've heard about it with other sports. But equestrian is a little different. The NCEA, which is the National Collegiate Equestrian Association, is the organization that actually runs college riding. So the NCAA recognizes equestrian as an emerging sport, which basically means it's supported at the college level, but not fully run by the NCAA like basketball or soccer are. So the simplest way to think about it is the NCAA sets the structure, the things like eligibility and scholarships, but the NCEA runs the actual competitions that are those head-to-head formats where you're riding randomly assigned horses and the national championship. So they both exist in the same world, but play different roles. Okay, is that any clearer? Hi, Beth. It's so great to have you as a guest on Broke Horse Moms. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
I think this will be a great conversation for our listeners and their kiddos who are looking to see what options there are past high school as they go into college. We've had a conversation on the podcast before about NCAA writing, and I think we'll have some in the future. But I was connected with you after actually my husband met someone whose daughter rode with you at Virginia Tech. And we got in touch because Chloe is interested in considering Virginia Tech riding. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into what a collegiate club team is, and then also using your experience at Tech and how you run the club to give our listeners some perspective.
That sounds wonderful.
So, I guess high level, can you give us an idea of what a club team is? And I guess the variety that might exist among different colleges and universities? I'm guessing there's probably a lot.
There really is. And I think that there's also kind of an opportunity within a lot of schools that are going to be maybe varsity teams for their schools. Some schools have club teams. Some schools just have student run organizations. So here at Virginia Tech, we fall under the sports club umbrella. And within that sports club umbrella, the students are really tasked with running and supporting their program with the oversight of the sports club office and oversight from the coaches. But it's really an opportunity for students to develop leadership roles and get into the actual administrative part of running their team. So within sports clubs, they fall under that umbrella of the Department of Sports Club, which is in rec sports. And the students have autonomy in terms of how they want their bylaws to read, what they want their constitution to be, whether they're going to have a memorandum of understanding of how their students are going to act and perform, as well as the coaches.
Yeah.
And so it's supported by the sport club, but we are a little bit unique because we also fall under the School of Animal Science.
Yeah.
So we have both kind of departments that have impact on how our clubs and our team works. And I think it's actually a really great opportunity. It's the best of both worlds because they get the animal science piece and they have this opportunity to really understand how a real barn will work in the real world. But then they also have the opportunity to have some influence in how their club runs.
Yeah. So, what are some other examples of club teams that exist at Virginia Tech? Just to give listeners perspective, way back when I was an undergrad at Longwood, I remember we had like a club softball team, or I just want to make sure we're all understanding it.
Yeah, so we do have club rugby, we have club basketball and swimming and lacrosse. I mean, there's all varieties. Each team does kind of work independently and they have their own opportunity to kind of manage their team and perform with their team how they wish. So not every team is required to have a coach. Within our system, we were not a sports club team historically. When Virginia Tech began their writing program and their IHSA program, they began as a part of animal science. And then as we developed, there was an opportunity to become a sports club team, which gives the students, again, a little bit more autonomy, but also it becomes a recognized sport within sports club at Virginia Tech, which gives them a higher ranking than just a student-run organization.
Got it. Now, when you say it runs under also animal sciences, that's actually an academic department, correct?
It is an academic department. I teach both academically and then oversee the teams here that on campus.
Okay.
And so that gives us this ability to really kind of add value in student riders in our program because we do have a curriculum. These students are going to learn a little bit more about the anatomy, physiology, how the horse works on the inside so that they can better ride the outside.
And would a student have to major in animal sciences, or is it just a couple of classes they might take?
They don't have to be an animal science major, but they have the opportunity to be an equine science minor.
Okay.
There's a lot of classes that we offer within animal science that are equine specific. One thing that I do that's very unique in this program is I oversee a study abroad program where we travel to Germany, Czech Republic, and Austria, and the students get to ride and have an opportunity to get to know the equine industry in Europe. So there's those classes, and that gives those students that option of having that equine minor. Essentially, for students that are not in the animal science school, they would use those credits as free electives.
Mhm.
Sometimes those credits will go towards something specific within their programs, but the majority of the students that are not animal science students are probably going to eventually add that equine minor,
Yeah.
and those writing classes would count towards that.
Perfect. And so when we look at a club team versus an NCAA team, I think there's probably a lot of differences.
Sure.
One of the questions that comes up for me is, how is the team funded? I mean, does the university contribute? Is it student funded? How does that work?
That really varies across the board too. And I
Yeah.
think it's important to also recognize that NCAA teams or varsity teams are not always competing with the NCEA, which is
Okay.
the Title IX portion of NCAA. So,
Okay.
an example would be Washington and Lee or Hollins. They are varsity sports within their athletic department, but
Mhm.
they're IHSA teams. They don't compete in the NCEA. Now, some of those schools are now adding that second component of
Okay.
NCEA, but within our sports club programs, it is primarily student funded,
Okay.
although the students do work really hard to work with the student council organizations to obtain funding. They do a really rich campaign during Giving Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so there is platforms for them to utilize to be able to bring in money that will offset some of their costs.
Okay. Really interesting. From the perspective of the student, I know NCAA or NCEA, there is often money that they can use for scholarships and recruitment. Does anything like that happen with club teams or club sports?
Again, not here at Virginia Tech.
Okay.
We don't have the opportunity to do scholarship
Yeah.
programs for the whole of their riding career. I
Right.
will say with the NCEA, those scholarships are limited. You know, each team within a NCAA program is given a certain number of scholarship slots,
Yeah.
and the NCEA riding teams are not different, right? Within a team of 40 students, they may have 10 scholarship slots.
Yeah. That's what the mom that I interviewed, she said her daughter had gone to Baylor and I don't think got any money the first year. And
Mhm.
I think eventually got some, but
Yeah.
it's not like what you hear about football players getting their entire 4 years,
Yeah.
maybe plus more.
Yeah. And one thing we do have here in our program is I do have writing scholarships each year that I do award to students, and that will offset the cost of some of their writing fee.
Okay. I mean, that whole concept of affordability in this sport, it
Mhm.
just keeps coming up. And I don't know the answer of solving it, both for families and also the professionals in the sport, too. I mean,
Yeah.
I've always said I want our trainers to be well paid and feel very comfortable, in the life that they lead. And it just seems like it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about club team riders. Who, if you had to kind of imagine, and based on your experience for sure, who is like an ideal type of kiddo to come out of high school and go into riding at a university on a club team? We can almost eliminate the conversation around like an NCEA because I do feel like those spots are fairly limited, right?
That is correct. For me, it goes beyond a level of talent.
Hmm.
So every rider has a certain amount of natural talent that they bring to the stage. But as a coach, I'm really looking for the overall student, the student that wants to be in the barn, be involved, support their teammates, support their coaches, are willing to be supported themselves, are coachable. I think that's
Yeah.
a really valuable attribute to a student. They have the ability to self reflect and understand their contribution to their writing, especially if they're having a difficult time with a specific course.
Mhm.
So I really look for students who are really bought into the program, they're bought into themselves, they're bought into their coaching staff. To me, it's not necessarily always just about the talent they bring to the
Yeah.
table, because that's what we're here for as coaches, is to develop riders. Certainly it's helpful when they have that level of expertise in their level, but that's not the most important piece for me. You know, they have to be good
Yeah.
humans that are raised well and are going to contribute to our culture in a positive way. So that's really the kind of student athlete I'm looking for.
It's interesting because I feel like equestrian sports are maybe not one of the only sports, but you can approach coaching and recruiting or having people join your team based on that whole person because they will be riders far longer than football players will be football players or gymnasts will be gymnasts. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the things I love about this sport is as a parent, I don't feel rushed to well, one, Chloe, I let her kind of run the ship and we are paced alongside of her, but she doesn't feel pressured to accomplish everything within this short period of time because she knows like she'll be riding into her 40s and 50s, and I think there's a lot of other sports that as a coach, I can imagine you don't have that time. You don't have to kind of be patient with the right kiddo who's got the right heart and the grit and determination, and then you can fill in gaps.
Yeah. And also, too, it goes without saying that we really have them for such a short period of time, right?
Yeah.
4 years, when it comes to your riding career, 4 years is a very small amount of time. And so it is something that I think I keep a real deep value in is that, we're really here to develop student athletes to the best of our ability. But what they do here is just going to be the startup for what they're doing later.
What about the types of disciplines that are represented at Tech, at other clubs? I know we talked a little bit, Chloe does jumpers. That's kind of where her heart is. And when I talk to her friends' moms who also love jumpers, sometimes we look at college and we think, I don't really know what there is for these kiddos. But again, you just gave me perspective. It's only 4 years. I mean, you can do something different.
Look, I believe truly in my heart that a good rider can ride any discipline and any horse that's set in front of them
Yeah.
because the horse and rider connection is a personal, intimate relationship,
Mhm.
right? And so, as a rider, if you really have this ability to absorb the information your coach is telling you and have body awareness, you can style yourself to any type
Yeah.
of discipline if you really are a good rider, right? And the
Yeah.
majority of the kids that come to us are able to do that. There's a
Yeah.
variety of different disciplines that are offered in intercollegiate sport. Obviously, large one that we see in our platform is IHSA.
Mhm.
IHSA has both the hunter seat and the Western disciplines. Here at Virginia Tech, we fall under one umbrella with IHSA, which includes our hunter and Western teams, but we also fall under the same umbrella with our dressage team. So, intercollegiate dressage is an option for students. We have a pretty robust eventing team here at Virginia Tech. Eventing has become a pretty popular avenue for students to ride in the collegiate setting.
Mhm.
We also have a polar team, and there are a lot of students that get into the polar team that have never
Right.
experienced that sport prior to coming to college. So it's a great opportunity for them to continue riding, but to do something a little bit different. And then, based on kind of where you are geographically across the country, you also have programs like rodeo teams that are intercollegiate programs.
I've finally gotten comfortable with jumpers and we went to a rodeo, I don't know, a year ago and watching the barrels and everything they were doing. I'm like, oh my God, that looks so dangerous. And I'm like, what has happened to me that I don't think jumping horses over sticks is
Yeah.
dangerous, but
Yeah.
this is. It's so wild.
Yeah. There's just so much variety in the disciplines. And what we seem to feel is comfortable and,
Right.
normal, we go and see other horse and rider combinations doing something different. And it's a little shocking to our system sometimes.
So for the listener who might be new and maybe me as well, remind us again what IHSA stands for.
IHSA is the Intercollegiate Horse Show Association, which
Okay.
was founded by Bob Cashion.
Okay.
And part of the program was to provide opportunity for riders in the collegiate setting that maybe didn't have the availability to go and participate at the highest levels. It was really developed for the rider to be able to come to the table from any background. And I really think
Mhm.
that heart of the program has continued on.
Do you have people that come and join the team who have never ridden?
Yes.
You do?
We do. Yeah. So within our system, we take every level from beginner riders all the way up to the most advanced riders that would be competing at the 3-6
Mhm.
equitation within the USEF disciplines. And so for us, We do have a level called introductory, and that introductory level is for students who have not been riding for more than 6 months in the
Oh
sport.
my gosh.
And so it's very important for every team across the country to develop really strong introductory level riders. And it really gives us an opportunity to kind of meet a different demographic of
Yeah,
student who maybe has never had that opportunity to ride and has always wanted it. I think those are the most enjoyable students
I'm
because you
sure.
get to really watch them develop so significantly in 4 years.
Well, and that's where, like, that is something that allows for accessibility in a sport that often is not accessible, whether it's finances or geography. It allows more people in, which
Yeah.
I'm all for. So I do have a question, and I'm doing this for my friend Jen Waller and her daughter Olivia, who also love Virginia Tech. What if a kiddo has a horse of their own? What do you see? And you can speak specifically to Virginia Tech, but also kind of high level what you see students doing, like when they graduate high school and then they go away to college. Is it a viable idea to bring and board your horse? Should they be looking at off campus facilities? Like, how does that work as we're looking to prepare for that next step?
Yeah, there's so many options
Okay.
available. You have some schools that are going to allow you to bring a horse and use that horse within their program. You
Hmm.
have some schools that don't have the option to board a horse on campus. So sometimes students will bring the horse and board them off campus. You have students that decide to lease their horse. You have the students that
Yeah.
sell their horses. So there really is a variety of ways that students go through that process. Here at Virginia Tech, we do not have the ability to board student horses on campus just from a space
Yeah.
capacity. I would say that a number of our students who do board off campus. It can be sometimes difficult to have a private horse and also ride on one of the competitive teams because our competitive teams do require a lot of time.
Yeah. What's a day in the life? Like,
We really think about our students as student athletes. That is how I want my riders to view themselves. They're not just riding students. This is not necessarily a pastime. I really want them to value themselves as a student athlete. So for our students, they're going to ride in 3 structured lessons a week, 2 regular lessons, and 1 team practice specific to their discipline. And within that week, they're going to flat at least once, jump at least once, and then have a discipline specific lesson for their team. They also are required to do weekly workouts. So that gives them the opportunity to really develop that physical stamina that we want to have them have as a student athlete. They have requirements for barn shifts. In my opinion, student athletes that are in the equestrian world really need to develop their horsemanship skills. It's important for them to value the horse as a teammate. And
yeah.
so that's my way of asking them to give back to our horse population. So they do 1 barn shift a week. It's a volunteer 2-hour shift. That gives them the opportunity to learn more about our horses and understand their personalities and
Yeah.
how we care for them. Each team has team meetings, they have team bondings that are required. So, for in our program, one of the things we do is the night before horse shows, our team members that are showing are required to get together
Hmm.
and have a team dinner and be together for a specific amount of time so that we really give them the opportunity to develop some stronger relationships, but also teach them that it's valuable to prepare physically and mentally
Hmm.
to have some downtime before you're asked to come to a horse show the next day and perform.
Yeah.
So within our program, I think it's realistic that these students are putting in about 15 hours a week
Hmm.
towards their team.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take a quick pause here to say thank you for being a part of this community. And if this podcast, if our newsletter, even our Instagram account has ever helped you to feel less alone, more informed, or just made you laugh during a long barn day, you can help support the show through Buy Me a Coffee. It's a simple way to help keep Broke Horse Moms independent and accessible for families who are figuring this out as they go. There's no pressure for sure, but if you would like to support the show, you can do that at buymeacoffee.com/brokehorsemoms for as little as a $5 contribution. And whatever you decide, I truly thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and for listening. What do the shows look like? And how wide of a geography do club teams normally compete within? Or is it a regional thing based on IHSA?
It is. So the country is divided into zones. And then within each zone, we have a select number of regions. So we are in zone 4, region 2, and our zone goes from Goucher, which is in Maryland, all the way down to most of the North Carolina schools.
Okay.
Within our region, we have 9 schools that go from University of Virginia to us here in Blacksburg at Virginia
Okay.
Tech.
Okay. Is there a show season?
Yeah, so our show season is both semesters. We do
Okay.
participate spring and fall. Each region is allowed to kind of select the number of horse shows that they decide to host each year. The minimum requirement is that you have 5 shows in a year. The maximum is that you would have 10.
Okay.
Our region typically has 9, depending on the year. Usually it's around 5 in the fall and around 4 in the spring. After regular season, you move forward to postseason, which is regionals, and then the top 2 individuals at regionals go to zones, top 2 at zones go to nationals. Within our region, only the top team from the region goes to zone finals, and then the
Okay.
top 2 teams at zone finals go on to nationals.
Wow.
It's a little different than IEA, which I know is a really popular platform now, and parents are starting to understand the IEA spectrum. For us, our students are not limited to only being able to participate in 5 shows for the season.
Okay.
Our students can participate in every single show. We still have a certain number of points that students have to gain in order to point out to move up to the next division. But again, a little bit differently, once our student points out of their current division, if our team would go on to postseason action, that rider would have to participate in the higher level, not the lower level.
So IHSA is similar to IEA in the sense that you're riding an unknown horse in competition, correct?
That is correct, yes.
I love that. I mean, I think that's such a developmental opportunity for riders.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said it's like the whole person is what you're looking for when you have people join the team. As some of our kiddos are preparing for college, what should they be trying to develop as they look to riding in college?
I think a really valuable opportunity for students is to develop a skill set in how they approach competition. And within that skill set, I think it's very, very important for them to recognize their self-confidence and have a sense of self-concept and understanding of how they believe in themselves, how they conduct themselves, how they respond to the horse, how they respond to the coaches. And then from there, have a strong kind of system in how they approach the competition aspect. As a coach, I think realistically over the last 10 years, I've seen a shift in students' self-confidence. And that's the one thing that maybe prevents them from being as successful as they could be in the sport that we participate in. Because it's not about going into an arena and working with an inanimate object. You are walking into an arena on a horse that you have no knowledge of and have never ridden. And we're asking those student athletes to perform in real time. That can be a little bit intimidating for some students. And most of the time, I think our higher level students suffer from this idea that they want to change the horse. And so having the skill set of being able to respond to what the horse gives you and ride the horse that is presented to you that day, instead of trying to make changes, I think that's the thing that the upper level riders kind of suffer from the most. But that kind of mid-level rider, the limit rider to the intro rider, the thing they have to overcome the most is their nerves and their self-confidence. And so I take a lot of students to sports psychology because I think that can be a really valuable tool for students to utilize to have some ways to manage their nerves in that competitive setting That's the one thing that prevents our riders from reaching the top each time, I think.
So, what does that look like at a show day when you see kind of the kiddo who has the self confidence, who has the self awareness versus the one who might be lacking in self confidence? Like, how does that sort of translate into what you see as a coach, both off the horse and on the horse?
Yeah, I think the ones that do kind of have that infallible like ability to control their nerves, they really have a plan. And they're
Hmm.
able to execute that plan because they can see it, they can feel it, they can understand the plan before they ever walk in the ring. I mean, every plan is going to be interrupted at some point. But
Yes.
oftentimes, the students who have that ability to kind of focus on a plan, they're much more adjustable in real time when things
Hmm.
show up. And so the kids that have a little bit less self confidence, the kids that have a little bit more nervousness, that's the thing that I see the most is that they just cannot formulate a plan. Visual techniques is really valuable in our sport, like being able to sit down in a quiet space and close your eyes and visualize what you're going to do and
Hmm.
truly believe in that process. That can be so valuable to a rider because they understand, oh, when I come out of this corner for this bending line, I've already seen that in my mind. I've already seen that I ride stronger on my outside edge so that I don't allow the horse to drift. And I
Hmm.
give an opportunity for the horse to be a little straighter sooner. So that can be a really valuable tool. Those kinds of tools and techniques are going to be presented in that sports psychology platform. And I think it's such a valuable thing for riders that want to be in an equestrian collegiate program to participate in.
I love how you mapped it out so clearly because we always see kiddos who say they're nervous. One of Chloe's best friends always says, like when she's sitting on the horse before she goes in, she thinks she's going to throw up,
Yep.
but she does fine and great when she goes in. So it's really vivid for me to kind of imagine like what you're seeing about the plan. I think that's a really interesting, concrete takeaway.
I'm not a sports psychologist, but one of the things I say to my students is I talk to them about the difference between nervousness and excitement in their body. I said, what is the difference between nervousness and excitement? They always say, there's not a lot of difference, right? It's adrenaline. It's adrenaline rush. It's an adrenaline dump. But one has a positive connotation and one has a negative connotation, right? So when we think about nervousness, we're
Hmm.
afraid. We're afraid of messing up. We're afraid of not being good enough. We're uncertain if we can accomplish it. But when we think about excitement, we're excited to try. We're excited to succeed. So I talk to my students about that because I think that's, again, I'm not a sports psychologist, but I could imagine that that might be a valuable tool that sports
Yeah.
psychologists use. So if you can flip the narrative and talk about how excited you are, everybody's nervous. Nerves are never going to go away, but how you view that nervousness really determines the outcome.
Can you talk to me a little bit about fear? Because that's
Yeah.
something I see some of the young female riders specifically, like as they get to a certain level of riding, sometimes I see that fear factor kind of creep in and they don't go to the next level when they are a very competent rider. I always wonder, like, is it fear? Is it nervousness of the competition? I'm interested just in hearing your perspective.
For me, when I think about fear and the students that I have worked with, almost always it's because there has been a mismatch in rider ability and the horse that they were mounted
Been
on.
paired with.
And I heard this saying a long time ago, and I've tried to keep it at the forefront of my teaching that green and green make black and blue. And so when riders are overfaced, and I do think this is a significant problem in our sport. I see so many students that they want to get to the 3 foot, they want to go to the ASHOs, they want to do more, more, more. And sometimes we are allowing that to happen in our industry without that needed foundation. And students are getting overfaced a little too fast. We talked a little bit about the financial constraints in our industry. And sometimes what ends up happening is students are paired with horses that are not correct for their ability at the time. They get a green horse because it's a more affordable option.
Mhm.
And when they have that green horse, they're not equipped with the tools to be able to handle some of the idiosyncrasies that come with a green horse. And so
Yeah.
then they start to become nervous because they can't be successful. So to me, I think it's an epidemic in our sport.
Hmm.
The fear comes because students either don't have the option of being on that tried and true school horse that really is going to keep them safe and allow them to learn the skills they need to move to the
Yeah.
next step. Students want so badly to move on faster than they should. And right or wrong, sometimes coaches feel obligated to move a student up before they're ready.
Well, there's a lot of parent pressure. I mean, I've definitely heard that.
Absolutely.
And I'm always like, Chloe, it's you and your trainer get to decide where
Yeah.
you go. And I just feel like it's so much more of like a 360. You always talk about how it's not really just a sport, it's not seasonal, it's a lifestyle in a
Yeah.
sense, because it is so all encompassing. But
Yeah.
I love that for our kiddos when they're paired with the right people and the right animals.
And that's something we really need to put a critical eye to across the country, because I would say that unfortunately, 80% of the kids that come to me that have the dream of riding at this level in the intercollegiate setting are not successful because of what they have done previous to coming here. And a lot of it is related to maybe mismatch in ability, rider to horse, training, or moving up too fast. When you
Yeah.
have students that have these really lovely horses, and that's exciting for them, and the horse is much more capable than the student is at the time. And so they move up a little bit faster. And then unfortunately, sometimes things like crashes happen, and that just
Yeah.
chips away at that self confidence. And then, you develop this fear that is debilitating.
Oh, so fascinating. I guess similar to that as a mom, is there anything that you wish we knew or that we did a better job of preparing our kids along this journey? You can be really honest, Beth.
I love that you asked me that question because I am a mom,
Yeah.
and my oldest daughter does ride intercollegiately currently. And I even feel, as moms, we're always second guessing whether or not we're doing the right thing. And we don't know that,
No,
this doesn't come with a manual, and nobody tells us, we don't have a manual that gives us the details of how to prepare your child to move
no.
on to intercollegiate equestrian. And I think I even maybe, I mean, I make mistakes. I know I did. I shouldn't say maybe. I definitely made mistakes. And my child specifically, she's a fabulous rider and she is very dedicated to the sport, but she does also fall in that trap of wanting to do more than, right? And so, as a parent, if I could give myself advice that I think would be really valuable, then hopefully translate to other parents. I wish I could really instill the value of my child being enough in the place that she's at.
Hmm.
I missed the mark on that. And that's, disappointing for me because, I just believe in her so much and I want her to believe in herself, but I also want her to be okay with being at her level. It's not a comparison to your peers. And that
Yeah.
is the hardest part about our sport is, we have so many students that want to compare themselves to their peers. And that sets them up for failure sometimes in a way that we should be really mindful of as parents.
There's so many variables into what quote level you're competing at.
Yeah.
Chloe is now on a large pony and she's not going to get to 4 feet on this large pony,
Yeah.
And so, but I would also like give yourself a bit of grace as a mom. I mean, we do the best that we can, and
Yeah.
some of that comes from them internally and having failures and recognizing, oh, it was good enough back when I didn't need to push that much. Chloe told me the other day because she's one of those kids that would ride anything that was offered to her, and she has been hurt and she seems okay with that. And we were talking about a specific horse, especially with her looking for pony finals this year. And I said, you really need to, consider what your year is going to look like and how many different horses and what they might look like before you hop on them, because you do have some really big goals this year. And she said something, and I didn't do this for her, but she said, I want you to know I've learned to say no. Like, I know now if I have a spicy or hot horse, I'm going to put them on the lunge line. And if they look like they're a mess, I'm not going to get on them.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I feel like we've gotten to like a really good space with this because there was a time before that I feel like if someone would have asked her to get on a wild horse that she might have felt uncomfortable, she would have done it.
Yeah. See, that's the idea of self-concept,
Yeah,
right?
fair.
Really recognizing, that you have value in every space and that
Hmm.
it is okay to not say yes all the time.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
for girls.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
outside of the arena, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I feel like we could cover 1,000 more things, but I want to keep this tight for our listeners. I might have to have you back on because I do feel like there is a bit of an epidemic there because to really have horses that you can transition up as kids grow and evolve requires a lot of money from trainers too to
Yes.
have that stable of horses. And I just don't know the answer.
Yeah. It's a very hard ecosystem to navigate through because I know the trainers. I mean, I am one of them,
Yeah.
and we do the best we can, and it's really hard to, as a trainer, when I have a horse that is a tried and true and a Wonder Man or
Yeah.
a Wonder Woman, I need to protect that horse in a way, right?
Yeah.
And so even though they might have the ability to do the 3 foot, I may not allow that to happen because I have to protect my investment. Whereas I also recognize from a parent perspective that we want our kids to be able to develop and bloom and grow. And so there is this kind of, hard part of the ecosystem where unfortunately, really it becomes a financial scenario and there's just not a good answer, I don't think at the
I
time.
know. I
Yeah,
hate that for us, Beth.
I know.
Well, I feel like you're very much doing your part. And I do feel like the club teams seem to fill a very large gap in this journey. I mean, I think there's still a lot to figure out from maybe ages 12 to 18, but it does seem like the college options are there. It's just parents needing to, help their kiddo do the research and find those schools and programs.
Yeah. And I think it would be so valuable, especially in our scenario where we are a part of the School of Animal Science. We are also a part of the sports club program. And I don't know exactly how to navigate this, but I would love to find a system where we could get some endowments so that those endowments could help offset the cost for students because there are so many riders that deserve the opportunity that just aren't able to come to the table because of a variety of different variables that keep them from being there, whether it is financial, social, economic. And I want so desperately to provide that opportunity for every
Yeah.
student. I was that student. I came to Virginia Tech. I did not come from a horse family. My parents did not know anything about horses. I wanted so desperately to be in the industry. This is what I knew I wanted to do. But we had financial constraints. And so I didn't have the opportunity to go to shows when I was a young rider in middle
Hmm.
school and high school. And so for me, when I came to college, I felt so much that I was behind. So I know that if I felt that way,
Yeah.
the students still feel that way. And so we
Hmm.
have to do a better job of educating everybody that every path you take is valuable. Whether you're a
Hmm.
kid that's just at a local barn, that's just riding on the weekends, or a kid that's doing local shows, or a kid that has the ability to go to the A shows, every path has value in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if a parent and a kiddo are interested in learning more about Virginia Tech's club team, as an example, when
Yeah.
should the kid start looking at programs? I guess some actionable next steps for parents would be a great way to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, I think the first actionable step is to try to get involved in the ETS. There's a man by the name of Jim Aragon who is a former IHSA coach, and he has this program called ETS, which is Equestrian Talent Search. And then
Okay.
he also does a Tournament of Champions series. The ETSs are hosted at colleges throughout the country, and students can enroll in this clinic format. It's a weekend long event, a Saturday and a Sunday typically, where students come and they ride with Jem, but also the coach of that college. And
Oh,
they have the opportunity to get some feedback from both him as well as the coach in the level that they are currently riding at. There's also classroom time. Within that classroom time, the parents and the students are invited to come and learn about the judge's perspective, to learn a little bit about the variety of opportunities in intercollegiate riding. And so I think it's a really valuable platform. And that's something that we host ETS clinics here at Virginia Tech. They're really hosted at, I would say, most of the larger scaled equestrian programs that are pretty active and successful within their regions and then zones and nationals. So, Goucher, SCAD, Hollins, Mount Holyoke, Centenary, most of the colleges are hosting ETS. Also, too, colleges themselves have riding clinics and camps in the summer. So that's another way to get in front of some coaches and to learn a little bit more about the systems. A number of years ago, we did an equestrian preparation clinic and camp here at Virginia Tech. It is something that we have on our radar to bring back. But one of the things we do is we have a summer riding program. And so if students are in the Virginia area and they're interested in coming to Blacksburg for a day or two and riding in some lessons, that is something that I offer in the summertime. So students can come and get some experience with our horses and me as the coach and learn a little bit more about our program. I also talked about the Tournament of Champions. The Tournament of Champions is a horse show series that kind of goes around the country to a variety of different schools. And high school students can register to participate in that Tournament of Champions. It's like going to a regular horse show.
Yeah.
They would do a flat phase, and then there's a callback from the flat phase to do a jumping phase. So I think those are some really tangible ways that parents can get involved and students can get involved in understanding kind of what's out there in the college world. But also, just like reaching out. One of the things about college equestrian coaches sometimes is that we are so busy that sometimes communication gets a little bit dropped. It's not on purpose.
No, I mean, it's just the reality of the sport.
I promise if there's a parent or a student that has reached out to a college coach and they haven't heard back, it's not personal and it's not intentional. And networking is so valuable. Parents
100%.
really should not be afraid to network. You know somebody who knows somebody that you want to talk to, right?
Yeah.
And really in our region, we have Roanoke, Ferrum, Washington, Lee, Hollins, UVA, JMU, Bridgewater, Virginia Tech, University of Lynchburg. Those are our schools. We had fabulous coaches in our region and fabulous teams. And every one of us is willing to talk to you. But also, too, I'm willing to get you connected with the Washington and Lee coach, right?
Yeah.
So, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to want to be at Virginia Tech.
Right.
I'm willing to help you with whatever school you want to be at.
Yeah, I love that. What year in high school is an ideal time to start looking at these resources, none of which I even knew existed?
Yeah.
So this is exactly why we're having these conversations on the podcast, because I'm sure if I didn't know they existed, most other moms who didn't come from horses also didn't know they exist.
Yeah, accessibility is a struggle, I think, because we all kind of are in our own little worlds and we forget that there's this greater community that really needs to hear these things.
Yeah.
I think it's probably normal timeline for college pursuit. Sophomore year, I think, is a very reasonable time frame to start getting in front of coaches. I think some of that depends on whether or not you're going the NCAA track or not. And so that is something to consider. It's hard for a club team to really connect with a sophomore sometimes because they're a little further out. If you are going the NCAA track, if you're waiting until your junior year, you're probably a little bit behind the ball. So I think sophomore to junior year is probably a reasonable time frame.
Perfect. This has been so helpful. I'm going to put all of the Virginia Tech links in the show notes, and I will grab the links for all of the actionable steps that you mentioned. But I know our listeners are going to really appreciate this. And I think it's going to give them a sense of peace, just kind of knowing a little bit more about what comes next. So thank you so much, Beth.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's it for this episode of Broke Horse Moms. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you are trying to get organized for show season, don't forget to download the 2026 Broke Horse Moms Planning Workbook. It's linked in the show notes, or you can grab it at brokehorsemoms.com/2026. If you know another mom who suddenly found herself learning the horse world right alongside her kid, please send this episode her way. The more horse moms we have figuring this out together, the better. I'll see you in the next episode, and until then, give your rider a hug, if they actually let you, and take a deep breath, Mama. You are doing great.